Okay. Officially welcome to session whatever number, forest painting today that we're going to be doing. I will try to stay on the 2-hour mark, but you know how it goes. So for today, yes, we will need your primaries, so red, blue, yellow, black, and white. One thing I wanted to point out at the beginning is that this is it's a monochromatic painting, okay? So we're going to be working in stages from the background to the foreground, progressing from light to dark. And what I want you to keep in mind is that you don't have to match my color exactly. If you want to make a differently tinted painting, you can totally choose shades of blue, or choose shades of green, or choose shades of pink or purple or orange. So depending on, because what we're going to do is we're going to mix like a mid-tone first, and in this case I have kind of a turquoise, but I want to tell you now, before you mix your main color, before we get started, that you could totally do this painting in shades of any color, okay? Because it's monochromatic, we're focusing on shape and depth and not so much on color. So once we start doing the progressive layers, we'll be using the same source of color. So if you're not comfortable with mixing a turquoise or the exact shade that I'll be using, you can use, for example, I know we used in other weeks that you might still have, you can use a turquoise straight out of the jar, or you can use an ultramarine straight out of the jar, or a cyan, or whatever. Cars are gonna be noisy. Hang on. Goodbye, fresh air. Definitely, yeah. I'll probably be matching this a little more because the photograph is probably just taken in different light. So I will probably be doing it closer to a, well, I don't know. I'll find out once I see what the mood of my blue is. I'm using ultramarine, but I also have a phthalo. So I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, they kind of look the same. I don't know. I'm gonna try my phthalo. I know you have so many blues. I remember. So many blues. So you know what? If you have a lot of blues, do little sample. I'll do it with my palette too. I'm gonna try 3 of them. I'm gonna recommend that before you make a decision, I'm gonna put a little dot of each different because a lot of people collect a lot of blues, and this will be good for anyone looking back at the recording too. I'm gonna use my ultramarine as well, and I have a primary cyan, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix a bit of yellow with each one and see what they do. And then we're gonna pick from there, and we don't want to be committed right at the start and then be like, oh, I hate it, never mind. Actually, there's barely any left of this, so it's not a good idea to use it. So I'm just gonna compare. If you leave it as cyan, like just pure cyan, and not add yellow to it, that's totally an option too. It'll be a cyan forest. It's all good. I'm gonna test these 2. Oh dang, I don't know which one I did second. Okay, ultramarine is over here. This is ultramarine, and this is phthalo. Yeah, just a little bit. So this is the P for phthalo and the U for ultra. And then I'm gonna grab a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white. And this is just to test it. If you're already certain what you want to use, go ahead and put a big blob of it on a corner of your canvas. I'm gonna test this out real quick, and we'll see what we get. You're gonna have to add yellow and white to it because, sorry, that's probably really loud. Okay. Yeah, so it gives you some options, and like you could totally do this with like, make it almost even look like a sunset by just using shades of red or orange, even progressing from from a pale yellow down to orange here into like a red. Could also be a really cool option. I just wanted to give you guys these options before we start, just in case. All right, so phthalo. Oh yeah, see, my phthalo blue is way more, I'll do this closer up. This may not even apply if you're not doing this, but this is more cyan-y. That's a word. And then, totally. And my ultramarine's definitely more purple shaded. You see the difference there, even though it's out of focus. It's, yeah. Ultramarine tends to be more on the purple side. That's why I like to mix it with magenta so often, because it sucks up the magenta so nicely. It really plays with it a lot nicer, more nicely than cyan. When you mix cyan and magenta, it tends to be a little brownish, on the more browny side. All right, so I'm gonna try the yellow real quick. So this is yellow with ultra. It's really dark. And then with some white. Yeah, I don't think ultramarine's gonna be the choice here. It makes a much duller turquoise. It's... What's yours? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So maybe something, if you're gonna be mixing a green, I would say stay away from the ultramarine. That rhymes. Okay, so let's do phthalo. If you're mixing green. Yeah. Yes, this is a lot that is okay. You can just add a bit less of the yellow. But see how much more vibrant the phthalo is? Whoa. There we go. I'm glad we had this discussion. So many blues. And it's funny because blue, it seems to, I mean, because so many people love that color, I think, and there are so many different shades of blue that exist in nature, I feel like you can't just say a primary blue. You know, it's the same thing as in oil paints. There's no primary blue. It's either ultramarine or cobalt or royal, or, you know, they're just, or phthalo, and they all have such different characteristics. And if you look at a color wheel, they actually really, there are some blues that are closer to the warm end and some blues that are closer to the cool end. And in this case, ultramarine is definitely a warmer one, and it mixes better with reds. And the phthalo, as we discovered, works better with yellow. Like, wow, yeah, it's a huge difference. Yeah. Oh no. Okay. It's... Ouch. It's a love bite. Oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. Alrighty, so I will say grab whatever blue you're using and do a big chunk of it at the bottom, because that's going to be your source color. And we're going to mix it, try to get, I have a blob of white on the opposite side too, like so. Ignore my little tests, but I'm going to try to get a color that's somewhere in the middle right here. So it's like a mid-tone, I would say. So your blue, a bit of yellow, and then a tiny bit of white, but not too much white, because we're going to we want a variety of colors, and we're going to step from mid-tone and, yeah, anyway, just mix your mid-tone first. So yeah, the greeny hue. So I have mostly blue. I'm gonna grab some yellow. Because you can see, like, when I first mix the, oh, I'll have to get used to where it's falling on the camera. When I first mix the yellow in, the blue just eats it up, and it's as if I did nothing. But as soon as you add that little bit of white, you start to see, well, obviously I haven't done it yet, but like this little bit of white, it wakes up like right away. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Same thing with oils. Almost all oil paints right out of the tube look almost black, which is kind of crazy. Oh, it's so beautiful. All right, this is a bit dark. Maybe a bit more yellow. So we might not end up using all of this. Well, we probably will. But it's also a reference for later, because like you might have to mix more throughout the evening, depending on how much you made the first time. But at least even if this little spot dries, you'll have it as a reference for color. You'll be like, okay, I just need to add a bit more yellow or a bit more blue. Because mixing a turquoise or a green, yeah, see mine's pretty dark. I'm gonna add a bit more white. Hi, Milo. Hey, Squeaky. Okay. This also would be probably better to do with a palette knife. I don't have one handy, but I'm using my rounded pointed brush right now to mix the color. Whenever, another thing, like especially when you're dealing with large chunks of paint, I would, I'm not using it now, but a palette knife would be good for that as well, because then you're not loading up this brush unintentionally. I'm just trying to mix it. And then, dang it, where is it? I think I only have it in my oil set, which is far away right now, so forget it. Okay. So here is my mid-tone. Oops. I'll get used to this camera thing. It's all good. Yeah. I have it much darker than this one here, but it's okay. I'm gonna add more yellow. All right. Emergency yellow off to the side. Okay. Now, the first step, actually, when I recommended the canvas sizes for this, I said like it would be neat to have a circular one, because like I was looking at the layout of this, and I've never done a circular canvas before, but like it would actually be kind of cool to crop it there like that, because the whole thing ends up being like a tunnel. Anyway, I might try that someday. All that to say, yeah, I was curious as to whether or not you would end up using a circle one. Okay, so I washed the brush I was using to stir with, because I'm gonna be mixing a new color now. So once you have your mid-tone ready to go, we're going to be mixing the palest color. So like I said, we're gonna be working from the very, very back, progressively in layers, working closer and closer to the foreground. So the layer at the very back, it's as if you're standing in a really dark forest and you're seeing the exit, right? So you'll see all the light is going to be centered here. So as we go, we're not going to go back and work details. So we want to make sure we have everything we need as we go, because if you want to work back, it's hard to mix that exact same color again. Because like if you're in like level 3 over here, where these medium tree colors are, to go back into like 2 steps earlier would be very difficult, because also acrylics dry darker. So, you know, so just keep that in mind. It's not the end of the world. If you can mix the right color and put it back there, more power to you. But I'm just letting you know that now in advance. We'll be starting at the palest point and working our way forward. So make sure you have a blob of white, and we're going to be using a smaller brush. Unlike our many other paintings, we're not doing the giant cover up first, right? Normally we work kind of like from blurry to detailed, like, or background to foreground, but in this case we are working back to foreground, but we're going to be using a small brush and then get bigger, which is like backwards from what we normally do. It's a great experience. You'll love it, I promise. Okay, so since I'm going to use my pointed round, and the first area we're going to do is, if you were to split the canvas up in half, horizontally? Vertically in half, and then the top third horizontally, this is where we're going to be right here. So I'm going to put this aside. You guys can still see it on the sample image, but I'm going to keep it there. Let's see. I'm going to shrink. If I'm here, I'm thinking maybe I'll put the sample over here. That's a bit better, eh? Yeah. You don't need to see my face, you just need to see the art. Okay. All right, so the first color we're mixing is going to be a very, very, very pale version of our mid-tone. So I want you to grab some white, and we're gonna put it very close to your main swatch of white. We don't want it to be too far because we want to be able to lighten it and have that reference, have that source nearby just in case we need to add more. And eventually we're gonna make a little gradient. It's gonna go whoop, like it's gonna start light here, and we're gonna keep mixing darker, progressively darker colors until we get closer to the source there. So you have your blob of white here, and we're gonna grab just a dab, like a tiny dot of our mid-tone, and see how dark it gets pretty quickly. And we want just something like a hair off of what pure white would be. You want to be able to see a difference, but not a huge difference. Now, depending on, yeah, it's very slight. Hopefully you can see that. It's kind of like when you mix paint swatches, like at Home Depot or something, and then you're like, I can't even see the difference. It just looks like white. Like when I painted my office or my kitchen, it looked like they didn't even add any tint to my paint. But then once I painted it, I was like, oh, okay, no, for reals, that's the right color. Same kind of deal with acrylics here. It'll dry a bit darker. So as long as you can see a slight difference, then you're on the right track, but don't let it be too dark, because if you make it too dark right at the start, it's gonna be hard to see. All right, so starting with that vertical center and the top third, it's around here. We're gonna do a teardrop shape. So I'm starting with a little circle, and for each section, ooh, it's crazy blurry. Thank you. Hang on, I'm gonna real quick adjust the camera. I think it's. Why is it so dark? It's not letting me adjust the white balance. Okay. Anyway. Same. I think it might just also be the time of day. It's like, it's not sure if it thinks it's like, it's so dark. Hang on. That's a bit better. Put some artificial light going there. Can you sort of see that? All right, so I did a circle, but it will be a teardrop shape in a second. So still using the super pale color. And for every step of the way, basically what we're going to, again, eh? Yeah, no, thank you for telling me. It's probably focusing on my hair. Yeah. Oh, I don't like that yellow. Sorry guys. I think now that the sun is going down, it's like freaking out. Wow, why is it so erratic? Anyway. Okay, calm down, camera. You're good? Okay. I'm worried now. Okay, so every section, actually this might even be a bit too dark. Just saying like how we want every section to be a little bit bigger than we need it to be. So this little teardrop shape is fine for the first one, and then the next one we're gonna make it kind of like a bigger shape on top of the white area. Not white, but your palest color. I'm gonna go a shade lighter because it's looking already kind of, not dark, but I'm just gonna lighten it up a little bit. Just a little, because it actually dried darker. Of course, 'tis the nature of that. Okay, cool. Now you want to be pretty light-handed or not heavy with your paint amount, because we are layering one on top of the other right away. We're not giving it time to dry we're not giving it very much time to dry in between layers. So keep that in mind. Don't chunk it up if you can avoid it. And yeah. All right, so the next shade down. All right, cool, you can see it. This is my first one. I'm gonna grab some of the first, we're not gonna need the first color again, so you can either kind of just go over your entire first swatch, but if you want a little bit, just for reference, you can keep some of it there. But I'm gonna push some of my paint, I'm gonna move all of it aside, and then add another little dot to the next shade. Oop. We're gonna make a gradient, a stepped whatever, steps of color. I can probably use a little more there, but not too much. I think so, yeah, like this, we want to see enough of a difference, but not a huge step, like a 10% difference. It would be, I had a value scale for the portraits class that I taught, and that was actually pretty handy, and it was just, it split pure black to pure white, and there were 10 stages. And each stage obviously was like a 10% change in the blackness or whiteness or whatever. So same, the darkness, yes, the darkness level. So you can see a slight step. Actually, that might be a bit more than a slight step, but we'll see how it goes. I might add a little bit more to that. So there's definitely wiggle room. I don't want you to worry too much about it being exactly, as long as it's a small step. Okay, so now if this is, it's probably not dry here, but okay. So this little teardrop shape, we're gonna frame it, and it's gonna look like an outlined teardrop, like so. Cool. And this is basically creating a little arch. There are two trees here, like there's one this way and one that way, and they're kind of closing that little tunnel of light. I'm gonna make it a bit thicker because we're going to have to leave ourselves enough space to overlap these trees with other trees. So make it almost the same width as the actual teardrop. So it's gonna look kind of graphic at first, like an icon of sorts. But you'll see where I'm going with it in a moment. It will unfold before your eyes. We have a teardrop, right? It's a lot of fun. Again, oh, my hair is just taking over. I don't know why it's doing that. I really don't. Wake up, camera. So finicky today. Thank you for telling me though. I appreciate that. Just give me a shout anytime it does that, and I will move around. I am pretty sure that it doesn't take your voices into the recording. I am 90% sure that it does not. I don't think the jellyfish class did. Depends on what my settings are. Okay, cool. So once you have, I posted the jellyfish one. That does work. It should be on the Patreon now. I did finally upload it. It takes me forever. I should really do it in a perfect world. I would upload them immediately after, but I get too busy with you guys, and I have a drink, and we get chatty, and we wander over to someone else's stream, and we have a good time. So I tend to post it, and I don't have another admin day until the following Friday, sometimes the following Monday, because I already have this Monday already all planned out with stuff to do that I didn't do last week. So it often doesn't get done until like 2 weeks later. Life. It'll be the best editing ever. Thanks for coming to my class. And there's like memes everywhere. And like, I just... That would actually take a level of focus that would be impossible while drinking. Like adding more detail to things. Typically when I'm drinking, the kind of painting that happens is really bad. Like all these people saying, oh, you know, I'm gonna enjoy some art time tonight with a glass of wine or something. And I'm just like, I tried that once. Like I had friends over and I was painting in the room and we had the couches set up and like I was half chatting and half drinking and that's a lot of halves. A third of this being out of focus. Oh my God. Why today? Why? Mm-hmm. Oh, I have an idea. Hang on, give me a sec. I still had my camera mode set to automatic from when I took photos of my toys today. I think it's gonna freeze. I'm just letting you know in advance. It's gonna freeze. Give me a sec. I'll turn it off and turn it back on again. Quintessential IT. Right? But see, this is where editing will come into play. Hopefully I'll see the giant black screen when I'm using Premiere and we'll be like, oh, that's what you're trying to do? Okay. Yeah, so I forgot, like, when I use my actual camera, I actually had it off the tripod. It's just so funny because it usually stays put on this tripod for streaming, always. And I very rarely actually use it as a camera. So, yeah, there we go. Now I have options again. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. Oh, and it's crazy zoomed. Okay. You guys can't tell the difference, but I sure can in the editing portion. Now it should stay, it's because like I had it on auto, so it kept trying to accommodate for things that it didn't need to do. So right now I'm gonna set it to, sorry, I'm probably tacking on so much extra time to this. This is true. I should have done it earlier, but you live and learn. At least we have sound. Okay, let's test this. Let's do it. I got you, camera. You're not gonna fool me again. Excellent. Okay, good. All right, so now we're going to paint. Okay, I'm looking at my reference. Okay, I have a small branch coming from here, kind of slicing off the top of our teardrop. Try not to, the first layer should be kind of not too wet by now. So the technique I'm using on top of the previous layers is more like I'm placing paint on top of it instead of blending it in. In our previous ones, I'll zoom in, actually, that might be helpful. A lot of our previous paintings, what we did when we approach a new layer is that we go all blendy on it, you know, and you kind of dry brush things and you kind of try to, oh my God, camera. Oh wow, you just love me today, don't you? You just love me. I just wanted to zoom in. You know what? I need a camera guy to be like, okay, yeah, just do this. Oh, okay, thanks, buddy. All right. Right? Ugh, okay. So, is he actually streaming right now? So the difference is that instead of like really pushing our new color into the previous color, we're just kind of placing the paint on top. And don't drag too hard because you don't want it to pick up the previous layer. If it picks up a bit of the previous layer, it's not the end of the world. it's all the same shades, right? But we want there to be some contrast. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the bottom. I'm gonna add like, it could be either a branch, maybe a root, but it looks like this little logo right now, like this little teardroppy kind of thing. If you want to get super detailed at this point, I wouldn't totally recommend it, but what we're mimicking here is this here. So this is our teardrop shape, if you can see it. And then there's a branch here and a branch there. I want you to know that you can take like creative liberties and freedoms to add whatever you like. And also when you are, when we're done the whole thing, you can also go back if you can match the right color and add more details into here. I'm just doing the basics to copy this painting, but as always, feel free to take this into mind that these are actually branches and roots, or they can be hanging vines like here later on. But for now, I'm just doing the basics so we can actually get through this. Yay! All right, let's mix the next color. So now I have this step, we're gonna go another step down. So if you need like a spray bottle to keep this main thing alive, depending on how dry your paint is, that is also a strategy. You can keep it moist, or you can have your main color in a separate jar, which also actually is something I do quite often when I'm doing a mural or something. I'll pre-mix all of my colors, or better yet, I'll just get them all pre-mixed at Home Depot in those small sample jars, because they're the exact same size as these Wallix thingies, actually. So like, and I just get the colors pre-mixed in advance, and then I just add white as needed, you know, if I need to make a darker shade. Anyway, pro tip. And then it's good for walls or exteriors. And then you just pick the type of paint you want and then go for it. All right, so this next layer is going to be a little bit more complicated. We're gonna get more branchy. Let me just make sure there's enough of a contrast. I'm gonna jump a couple small steps. I want there to be a fair contrast in this next one. Because it's kind of an exponential light drop, so it's like 1 step for the first one, 2 steps for the next, and maybe 4 for the one following, because we want to eventually get to something that's closest to black, right? So if you just went 1 step each way, it might not get all the way to the darkest dark. So this next one, if you look at the contrast between this color and this color, it's quite significant. Don't go crazy with it because it will dry darker, right? So start with something. We'll test a few branches, and then if you think it needs to be darker, you can always make it a little darker. It's so much easier to go darker than to go lighter, right? So start a bit lighter and then you can darken it after, no problem. So I went down one or 2 steps here. How's focus? It's being nice to us today? Yeah, it's a lot more. Oops, there we go. Okay, yeah, so you can see the steps, the lightest at the top, and then it's kind of looks like an egg. Like it's just dropping down darker into my little center here. Okay, so we have some roots that go, actually let's do the outline first. The outline kind of helps us shape the next step. So I have about 1 inch of the medium color between here. I'm gonna outline my teardrop shape. I'm not gonna intersect any lines just yet. I'm gonna keep this teardrop shape for a little bit. And again, the teardrop shape helps mimic the 2 trees coming into a canopy. Like that. And the thickness, it's gonna get a little wider every step, again, because it's that tunneling effect. So let's see, we want to get it about this really lopsided blob. And I'm gonna fill all of that. I might switch to a bigger brush, we'll see. And I'm filling all this up. It'll take some time, it's okay. If you're working a giant canvas, then you know, might need some extra time. Or a bigger brush, or both. And if you're watching this as a recording, you can, you know, hit pause or whatever. Right? Yeah, like if you're watching this. But, you know, not as lucky, you don't get to comment and banter, you know, it's totally, there's pros and cons, you know? See, I'm already running out of this color now, so I'm glad that I can, well, it's nice that I can see all the previous steps, so I can just grab more of the previous color and make more. It's drying up. Too dark. Okay. Yes, it'd probably be easier to do now than later when you have like 10 different shades to deal with, you know? Okay. Oh gosh, no, not 10. I would say, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors and then the black. So 6 stages. So yeah, like it is, yeah. And even if you like mentally like prepare 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 black, you know, this will be the darkest. So if it helps you map it out in your mind in advance, then that's good. This color here, this mid-tone will probably be around here, right? And then the black will be, I'll use the blue as black example, be down there. So 1, 2, and then maybe 1 here, and then, yeah. Oh, there we go. I'm kind of mimicking. I have to fix that. That's okay. Yeah, so 6 stages in total. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. I need to mix more of my color. And I'm just glad I don't have to remix anything with yellow because we already pre-mixed our. Because if you didn't mix enough of this color, of your main tone, it would be harder to mix, like, say, this 3rd stage from scratch, because you would then have to go back and like remember how much yellow was in there, right? So that's why if you're not as experienced with mixing color, I probably would recommend just using a straight out of the tube for your main color here. But you know, that's why I told you to mix a whole bunch of the main color. Now I have to catch up with myself. I had to mix more of my color here, and then we're gonna start with some branches. All right, so once you're finished this extra padded raindrop, we're gonna go in and mix. Oh yeah, it's big, because if we're looking at the sample here, that's this area, and it covers about, and we need to make sure it covers behind these areas, because then when you want to get these little pockets between branches, you want to make sure this color is underneath it, right? You don't want it to be a blank white canvas under there, because then you'd have to go back and fill them in. So that's why every stage is a little bigger than we need it to be, so that when we layer the branches on top, they have some background poking through that looks like realistic depth. All right. So we do the big section first, and then we add the branches. And just keep in mind that if these were your smallest branches back here, anything you do next, you want them on average to be slightly larger. Some of them can be thinner, that's fine, but you don't want these to be too much bigger than anything way out here, unless it's like a blade of grass or something. You'll see what I mean in a bit, but so for these next branches, I'm going to, it's gonna be a pattern of kind of intersecting, because if we pictured this being one big tree and then this being another one, it's like that canopy effect. So any branches coming from this right hand side will be reaching over this way to the left, again the opposite on the other side. So they're all coming in like this. So they're trees, they're organic shapes, you can't mess them up. All right, the only rule watch me. Yes. Okay. It is difficult to mess it up, okay? I'm just saying it's very forgiving. Organic shapes are very forgiving. So what I will go ahead and say is that, okay, I mixed this way too dark, but generally when you're painting trees, and I feel like I've probably said this a lot, but I never know to whom I've stated it. This is the back of something. All trees start big and fat on the bottom, because that's where they came from and that's where they've had the longest time to grow. Your branches will look more natural if they are thicker at the base and go thinner at the top. They have to taper. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're doing these. You don't want the top of your branch up here to be fatter than where you started down here. If that happens, you can cover it with something else. You can touch it up with another color, or you can have another branch playing off of it to kind of to hide that. But generally speaking, keep the bottoms fat and the tops thinner. So I'll add some branch, a little Y-shaped branch up here. And the nice thing about using this the small round is that the harder you press, the thicker it will get. So if you start up here, and it's okay if you have shaky lines, which I am pretty caffeinated right now. So I have like a shaky line here, which is great. And I'm gonna pull it down and drag it out to the left. And I'm gonna drag, the more I drag, see look how dark, much darker it's drying, eh? Ooh, I didn't mix my color very well. The harder you press, the wider the branch will get, which is great because it's like a natural, it makes it easier to mimic that natural shape of it being tapered. Sorry, so when I remixed my second color, it was quite a bit darker than my first one. So, work in progress, as always. Okay, so I'm gonna add a few more branches up here. I'm going to have them cross in what I feel like maybe interesting ways. I hope. Oh, see now this is super fat and this is way thin at the bottom. So I'm gonna make the bottom thicker to support it. Yeah, I totally didn't even follow my own advice. It happens. I need to mix more color. Okay. I just hope that it's somewhat close to the previous color. Yeah, see, this painting would probably be impossible in oils because you have to constantly go over your previous layers. It would be like, you could probably work it the other way actually, like from outside in, but that would just break my mind. I don't know how I'd be able to do that. That is way too light. Okay. I'm just trying to just mix the right color again. Okay, there we go. This is a challenging one, yeah. You can always, I know you're gonna touch it up later. I know you're gonna completely transform it. She hasn't finished. That doesn't matter. Who says you have deadlines for that kind of thing? Right? Right? No one said you had to finish one before starting another. There you go. It is, yeah, there's so many possibilities with it. Oh goodness, I need to mix more next time. Okay, so I'm gonna do some roots that are kind of tangled near the bottom, and it's just kind of gonna close up some of this space, so it kind of ends up looking kind of like a kickstand for the tree. Not all trees have flying roots, but it could also just be vines. Use your imagination. I've been doing lots of forest walks lately, and like, trees are on my brain, man. Planting trees, collecting trees. I finally found an oak sapling on one of my walks because I have like a dozen maple trees, like saplings in my yard now in pots. And I'm like, I don't want any more maples. I really want to find an oak tree. But because we have so many squirrels in our area, they don't get it. The acorns don't get a chance to even be like to sprout because they all get eaten, right? So the one oak that I found on my walk was because an acorn had sprouted inside of someone's front yard mulch, and it was hidden among a lot of wood chips. So I don't think the squirrel actually used that area for storage. So yeah, that was interesting, right? Like mine now, you know? And then I went on a walk with Brad today, and we were walking down to Canadian Tire, and that was a very long walk, and we cut through the forest, but this was an actual forest and not like just some trees in someone's yard. So I found like way more oak saplings because there are natural predators in the tiny woods and less squirrels. Because like here in the suburbs, there's squirrel, like you hit a rock and you'll find a squirrel. You hit a rock. You throw a rock and you'll hit a squirrel. There's so many squirrels in our neighborhood and no natural predators. But in the woods near our house, there are actually been like, there are foxes and coyotes and stuff. So Not as many squirrels, which means more oak saplings. Circle of life. All right, so now that I've added some roots and fun things here, I want to keep a little bit of each of the steps of color. I don't want to cover it up too much. I'm trying to look at my reference here. I think I'm gonna add a thicker trunk here. It's really trippy watching the paint dry at such a different color, so I'm just trying to be patient with myself. You can always add little pockets of light. And now, like, if you look in the center of your canvas at your first teardrop, like, to me it looks white. And I definitely remember it did not look white when we started, right? What's fun about that is that later on when we add the glowy bits, the white will really pop because it'll be pure white and everything else on here won't be. All right, so I'm going to jump down to the next stage of color before my palette dries too much. So this is what, all right, so I have, yeah, so this is the color I was working with. I'm going to add more of this. Ooh, that's way too dark. I just need to make sure to add enough of it so I'm not constantly remixing it. That's my biggest challenge right now. It's getting darker. Yeah, you'll progressively need more and more because we're covering more area with every step. So be sure to mix enough of it. Yeah. I should have said to mix like get a whole jar of it. Just buy the color you need and mix a giant batch. All right, so my next step. What's that? You glad? Oh, yeah. All right, I think this should be good for the next stage. It seems pretty dark. Lighten it up a bit. Ooh, that's a lot. I need more paint. There we go. Giant chonky bits. Yes. Excellent. I hope this is dark enough. It'll dry darker, for sure. For sure, Z's. All right, so you can guess what the next step will be. We're going to outline. This one we probably don't need to outline it as much. Let's see, what do I have here? Some trees, more trees. I'm going to overlap it a little bit. Can you still see what I'm doing? Yes, okay. I'm going to overlap the previous teardrop and expand by a couple inches. I'd say 2 inches on the side. I'm using a 16 by 20, so, you know. Yeah. So at this stage, this is the 1, 2, 3, 4th level. So we want to be 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to go about to here. So this is like, and then on the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so if I were to wrap this around, it's slowly going to get more and more square shaped because I'm using a square shaped canvas, right? So this is going to be messy and approximate. Just bear with me here. So this area, this horseshoe area, that'll be stage 4. And then eventually stage. If this helps you, go ahead and do this now. Oh, let me zoom out. You can't see the last stage. Okay. I'm so paranoid now to touch the camera. I'm worried it's going to explode. Come on! Right? It's like, don't touch it. You might mess it up. Ooh. The problem before is that yes. Okay. It looks so messy right now. It's okay. Yeah, so all this, very gracefully, will be stage 4. Okay. And then this will be, I'm going to even just do numbers. This will be 6, 5, and that'll be 6. Cool. This is 4. So now we know roughly this area will be the black area, the darkest of darks. And then this area will be the second dark. And then right now we're working the third dark, third level darkness. And you might want to switch. I think I might switch to a bigger brush actually at this point. Again, depends on the size canvas you're using. Oh, good on you. So far you should have only had to do the top, but yes, don't forget. Oh, bigger brush, thank goodness. I might actually go back and forth between the big one and the small one, so the big one to fill in the area, and then the small one to make the tree branches and stuff. Let's see, what was I using? Since we're using the same size canvas, I have a 5. So yeah, 5 or 6 is, especially since we're halfway through the color swatches. I would say, yeah, 5 or 6 should be good. Oh, I'm getting my painting all dirty up there. I have my reference like right up here, and I'm getting the bottom all dirty, but that's okay. Okay, so once I roughly have this area done, then we can do the fun parts and add the branches. Not that this part isn't fun, it's all fun! Alright, there's 5, and there's 6 for my own personal reference there. Here we go. And actually, since I'm using a filbert right now. It's a number 6 filbert, so it's like flat and rounded. So I might just flip it to its side to make the branches and bark for this next one. Okay. So now that I've got my big section done-ish, you're going to repeat the same kind of pattern again. But switch it up if you can, you know. Doesn't have to always be branches and lumpy roots. Here, actually, in my sample, I started doing some, is my head in the way? No. I started doing some blades of grass, just suggesting it. Because now as we build up, we're getting a bit closer. So if you add like, yeah, I totally can. Yeah, no problem. Yes. The mid, this should be a step above the mid color, but next will be the mid color. Yes, or pure black if you want to, but it'll more likely be, because the mid color is so close to black, you know, I mean, it should, at least for mine, this is my mid color around the edges here, and it's very close to the darkest dark. And I wouldn't want to tell you even to use pure black for the foreground. You don't want it to stick out too much. Even in this one, it will be slightly mixed with something. So you shouldn't have to ever use pure black in this one. Yeah, so I have some grass going on here. You might want to alternate between your bigger brush and your smaller brush. A few blades there. I'm gonna do some root. Now, because I messed up and this is really dark, I might just use that and turn it into a tree. Sorry, my camera's drooping. Eh? Cameraman, where are ya? Where's my helper? Or Brad. Bob, Brian, Brad. Ah, that's funny. You blame it all on Brian, and all of a sudden it's like, what'd I do? Oh, well, now you're responsible for everything, so congrats. Yeah, these are all the things you did. Now you gotta fess up and fix it. All right, let's see. So in this stage, let's see, let's do a big branch across everything. Looks like an elephant trunk. It's so great. So great. So as you get Yeah, I would recommend doing them bigger as you go. That way it's more convincing and it gives it some depth, and each branch that you add looks like it belongs to a tree that is closer by in perspective. There we go. I'm not following my own rules. Come on. Okay, there we go. Fat on the bottom, thin on the top. Let's put a big tree here. I'm just gonna lean this over like that. Well, I'm glad. I remember when I taught a paint night to my family. Oh my goodness. My mom was like, she's like, I'm glad I have mine. Right? Because like, especially because they're not all, they're not artists. I'm the only artist in the family. My brother is a little artistically inclined. He likes to do some woodworking and stuff, but none of them are familiar with painting, so it was very much me just reassuring them most of the time. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. We're here to enjoy each other's company, and you're not like, you don't have to hang this up unless you want to after. It's no pressure. It's more about getting to play. Like, how often do you just get to turn off your brain and just push colors around? Like, I rarely ever even do it myself these days. It's normally always project driven, or like, I have to have some outcome, or it's really rare that I even just paint without the camera running, like, because now it's like, well, every opportunity should be like, I should take every opportunity to record something for social media, or for something. So it's pretty rare that I ever just sit and paint. And actually, that's one of the reasons I like doing these, is because like, I get to paint too, and these are not paintings that I feel pressured to be perfect. And if I really like them and I felt inspired while I was making it, then yeah, sure, I'll take it to the next level afterwards. But while I'm here for you guys. We're hanging out. My mom has the kids tonight. Exciting. Even though I set up the chair-arcade, I stick the chair between my office and the hallway. And yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm blocking the room. Oh wait, there's no one here to block it from, and Brad's playing with cars outside, so there we go. I had a little branch here that was kind of like spiky. Here, I'll just pull this down again. I add little textures. Can you see that? You can see that, yeah. It could be spikes, it could be mushrooms, toadstool thingies hanging on the side of the tree. At this point, because we're like 4 steps in, you can start seeing some detail, right? So I have the grass, roots, little mushroom, toadstool thingies. You can even start doing vines from the tree if you like. But at this level, we're like halfway, depth-wise. So you can start thinking about adding different details. And to do the little toadstools, I just kind of like, actually, I'll put a tree here because that dark splotch I did by accident. We're gonna fix it and turn it into a feature. Yeah. So for that, I just have my brush on its side, and I just go boop, boop, and I make them progressively bigger as I go down. So just dab it, and then it's like there's a little series of bumps, and it could be mushrooms. Who knows? It's a silhouette. Doesn't matter. I love silhouettes. It could be anything. And it's nice to have these little pockets. So don't paint over everything. If you have little windows of light or color underneath, as long as it's not the pure white of the canvas. The whole reason we went wider before every step is to get those little pockets, right? And the more of those you have, the more visually interesting it'll be. So you don't want to cover all those up if you can help it. I'm adding some random grassy things too, because why not? Maybe I'll even do a flower. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, Amelia, I saw a 4-petaled flower. I didn't take a picture though. And it was like, I was like, I have to take a picture, and I totally forgot. I don't think I had it was one of the more responsible times that I was going for a walk without my phone, which I really should do more often, so I just stay in the moment. And I did, and I was like, but I found a white flower that's tiny, that has 4 petals. I have to share it with my paint people. Because I couldn't for the life of me find a 4-petaled flower. I kept only seeing the 5-petaled ones everywhere here. Like the little, like the ones we did for the bee class. So anyway. All right. I think I'll add a few more branches up here. And again, this is like totally, it's organic. You can add as many or as little. I'm using my smaller brush now, my number 5, I think. Yeah, the thin round to do branches and stuff. As long as you have a few big ones kind of framing it, then the rest can be all like chill and tiny. Again, just following that rule, thick on the bottom and tapering off. And try not to cover, like completely cover any of the ones you did before, but definitely cover them a little bit. You do want them to get covered a little bit to give depth. You don't want to just leave them all by themselves here. I might even, there's nothing feasibly I could add here unless there's like a, nah, that's fine. Okay, cool. I think I'm happy with layer 4. All right, so layer 5, we're gonna use the pure color. The purest dark color. Keep in mind, like for me, my pure dark color did have a little bit of white in it. So it's not just your pure blue with yellow, it'll be whatever your original color was. Hopefully that did have a little bit of white. Whatever your original color was will work. I have to mix more because we're gonna need a lot of it. So I just pray that it Yep. Use it. Oh, I think that'll work. Let's see. Not yet. That'll be the last layer. Yeah. So if you already did, it's okay. It'll be okay. Well, that's okay. You know what? It doesn't really matter exactly what color as long as it's darker than the previous layer. That's the only thing that really applies here. So you don't have to go all the way to the color that I'm gonna go to, or even just to the same level. The only thing that matters is that it's darker than the previous layer, really, even if it's just a step or two. Okay. Oh, I hope this is the right shade. I can never tell, it dries so differently. Okay. Yep, I hear that. A vulva tunnel. The tunnel of life. A different kind of life tunnel. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I often have a lot of like unintentional vaginal imagery in my paintings, and I'm not really sure where that comes from. Maybe it's like super hardcore feminist side where it's just like vaginas everywhere, and like I don't know. It's just like, especially in some of the repeating patterns, because like the pattern of like close and open and closed again, that like it's very cyclical. Like when I do patterns and stuff and I do a curve and you make some curves wider and then have them taper off again, it kind of automatically does that. And when you join them all together and you have them layered on top of each other, it often makes that pattern. And I've had more than one person say that some of my nebula pieces were like, that kind of reminds me of like, you know, womb or something, or like the journey too. I'm just like, oh, we're, you know, sure. It can be another imagery for life. Who knows? But yeah, you're totally right. And the fact that you chose magenta, I can't wait to see what it looks like. I was hoping that somebody would do a different color. Oh yeah, that is so pretty. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Nice. Oh, it's gonna look so pretty. It already does. I love the different colors. Okay, I think I finally mixed enough of this. Yeah, I feel like it's yeah, it's probably not a super very natural color for a forest, but it's my favorite color and I use it for everything, so yeah. Okay. Have you caught up a little bit? Actually, let me see. We only have... does anyone need a break right now? No? Okay, so we'll... It's all good. This is okay. It is perfectly fine. Because the next... There's nothing wrong with that. You can take your time. Because predictably, the next two layers are the same, right? So we just continue the same pattern of doing the darker around, doing some overlapping branches, and then again progressing to the last. The only thing that changes is like the absolute last step where we're doing the fuzzy, glowy things. And even that is super simple. So, yeah. And I know that you're a confident painter on your own anyway, so it's not as if like if you miss a few steps, you'll be totally lost, right? So if you were like a really, oh, it's so pretty. You're gonna need to go so dark. It's so pretty though. Okay, cool. Yes. All right, I'm progressing. Oh, that is so dark. Oh yeah, okay. I'm gonna have to add more white to this because wow, that was really, 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 really dark. That swatch I did right next to my number 5 is like, whew, okay. Way too dark. So dark. So I'm only doing 2 more levels, but if you, like Anita, you have a lot of space on yours, you could probably split it up. Like you could, like here I'm doing, yeah, see this is like a huge contrast. Yeah, you can do a few more because you have space, right? So if you have the space, you can split it up because I'm jumping from a fairly a light mid to my absolute mid-tone. So there could feasibly be at least 2 different steps between these 2 colors. So you don't have to jump to the next thing so quickly. I'm outlining my previous section, you guys, now, and I want to give a lot of space between these 2 sections because I want to add, I'm going to start adding some bumpy roots, and I want there to be lots of space. As you progress further away from the very center, each section gets progressively wider because of perspective, right? So when you're looking at, kind of like when you look, when you do your, oh, this is really going to be very whatever, but like if you ever do the 2-point perspective studies, this is a very bad example of it. But this is the horizon line, right? And then these are your directional perspective lines. Anything that happens here is going to be really big, right? And everything that happens far away is going to be tiny. So the closer you get to the foreground, the wider the spaces between the objects will be, and that'll help you simulate perspective. If I had a more something example, I could probably draw it digitally, but we'll be okay. For now, I'm just outlining the previous layer in my mid-tone. My mid-tone. And I'm only framing it for now. I don't want to add branches just yet. I want to have a rough idea what section, what area I'm playing with. I'm gonna almost go straight to the edge, but if you have tons of space, you can maybe squeeze another layer in there, but I'm gonna go almost to the edge there. Ooh, maybe I should need a big brush. Because when I use the black, I want it to overlap and I want some sections, right? So I want there to be space for me to put a branch and have more of this color behind it. So I'm gonna go all the way up to, not totally up to the edge, but almost. Like if you look at the sample, there's some overlap. I definitely could use a bigger brush at this point. But I'm committed with this one. Too bad. I don't want to have to mix the same color over and over and over again. Okay. Oh yeah, it is. I've been working on when I'm done, I want to show you the guys the toy paintings I'm working on. But they're all in oils, and I did a whole bunch of sketches today. And I had a call with Anne, who I did the last show with, and she's super stoked to do another show in the fall. And we still need to see what that's gonna look like with COVID and whatnot, but she's like super excited to plan something again, because it's a nice timing to have something right before Christmas, because that's normally when people are looking for things to buy. And I can never actually do a show in the summer because I'm not really around. I'm carting the kids, we're camping, we're outside. I don't do very much painting in the summer. So I'm hoping to get as much done. That's when you get all of your painting, eh? Yeah. Yeah. So I'm seeing like, this is now more of a U shape and less of a teardrop shape. So we're not closing things off as much at the top anymore, because what's happening is the trees are getting further apart, so they're not joining at the top anymore, other than with branches. So we don't want to, like this shape here, the number 5 color I'm using is kind of like, if you could look past the branches, it's here, and it goes up like that. And then that gives us, your whole, yeah, that's fine, because you're going from light to dark, and that already looks really cool. That looks really great. Yes. And the same way you did the other ones, but slightly larger. And if you're already at your darkest dark, then you can just have your foreground really dark. Like you don't have to add more trees, because you'll only be able to add them if there's contrast, right? So if you've already gone to your darkest dark and you're here, you can overlap some of these branches. Like here I have my darkest dark, sorry I'm covering this, my darkest dark is here. I can overlap them, getting closer to the middle, but never quite covering the middle, but just have them kind of, you know, maybe have some hanging vines or something, or some grass coming all the way from the bottom and covering some of the previous layers. And as long as you're using your darkest dark for that, then it'll show up against your previous layers. Where did my paint go? All right, so now it looks like I just have these 2 giant trees. I'm gonna have to zoom out my camera again. So this is like the lowest level of detail right now. So it just looks like like 2 big plain trees. So I'm gonna add some detail to that now. So the idea is that you start simple. Again, it's kind of basic with a lot of painting. You start with your structure, and then you go in the details after, but you should know what your structure is gonna be before you dive into those details. So I start with these 2 big tree trunks, and then I can add, actually I'm gonna toss this for now. And now because I left so much space, I have lots of room to play. So I can add a tree even like right here and have it come down. Again, utilizing that previous layer's color to have some contrast, right? So that you're not just completely covering. And if you have it completely covered, that's okay. You can always go darker with the next layer. Yeah, pretty little trees. Happy little trees. And really, like, the only rule that stays firm is as long as it's darker than the previous layer, then it's all good. And if you run out of layers, then call it done. Just make the whole thing dark on the edges, and then we'll add some glowy bits for contrast. Glowy bits. Yeah, I think we'll probably take a break once we're finished with the branches so that we can give the glowy bits a chance not to blend in with everything. Okay, so if you're already dark around all your edges, Sally, you can let it dry for a bit and then do the glowy bits after. So I have a tree there. Oh no, it's all good. Yeah. Perfect. And it looks awesome. I like it. I feel like I'm getting hungry again. It's so true. Drink. Yeah, then teaching goes out the window. Oh, that's a good idea. I should get Brad to do that for me. He left though. He got his leftovers. I made this like, I guess like I call it Singapore pancit, but it's not really pancit. It's just Singapore because it's curry. It's like the curried noodles with bell peppers and onions and stuff, but it also has like soy sauce. Anyway, it's super tasty, and I made it with shrimp, and those were his leftovers today, and he came in to grab some and then left again to go play with cars. Otherwise, I would have told him to put a drink. Put a drink in the fridge! Yeah. I had to at least twice. It's annoying. It's like, I thought I wouldn't have to do this. I thought I had enough. So now my trees, yeah, because we're covering the whole canvas at this point, you know, like, and then the rest is just detail-y stuff. And you're also using a big canvas, right? So at this point, yeah, you're learning. What was I gonna do next? Ooh, some curly-Q root thingies with spikes on them. Spikies is my favorite. Oh my gosh, I love putting spikes in things. Spikes and dots, totally. And yeah, as you keep going, the trees get bigger, so it takes longer to do them, and that's totally natural because they're getting bigger. Okay, so let me see. I'm gonna curve out the... I might be trying to stretch this color a bit by adding water. I don't know how bad that's gonna turn out for me, but all right, so I'm starting to make a little spiky bit. I start from the bottom, middle, and then I'll do some little M shapes. There's one arch, and then I'm gonna do another one, kind of overlapping it. There we go. And maybe it'll go up here. I'm adding a tiny bit of water to my pointed brush when I'm doing these details, just so it flows a little more nicely and it's not so chunky, because like I was using just pure paint before, but now that I'm trying to do details, I'm getting smaller up as I go here. So I'm gonna make it try to look like it's wrapping around the tree. Again, it's all silhouette, so it doesn't matter. I can do whatever. There we go. It's like climbing up a tree. But yeah, a little tiny dip of water before mixing it back on my palette. Look at my palette is an absolute mess now. My main color has totally taken over because that's all I'm using. But yeah, a quick dip of water and then twirling the brush right on the palette to give it this shape. And you know, if you need to switch to a smaller brush for these details, go ahead, do whatever works. Always, I try to remind people to start with a variety before, so they're not stuck without the tools they need. So like a light touch pushing towards the spike, rather the base of it, so it starts tapered, and then you press down and it turns into this little triangle shape. And then they can be uneven. They're not mechanical, they're organic. That's the beauty of doing trees and stuff. And if you've, oops, that's a bit too wobbly. Ugh. Oh well, it's a wobbly spike. It has problems. Yeah, it's oh my gosh. I can see like at the base here, my colors aren't totally matching, but because it's a silhouette, I'm filling it in. Like I'm touching it up, I'm covering my own color again. And I think I had some color differences here because I mixed too much on my palette. That's okay, you just cover it because it's a silhouette. We're not defining form, so that's the nice thing about the silhouette paintings, right? There's just no form to be defined. We don't have to shade things. What was that, Sally? Were you saying something? Oh, good. That's a plus. I mean, it's not always. Oh, it looks nice. I really love it. Can. Ah, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you like it. That's always a bonus. It's not always something that happens. Sometimes sometimes you have a learning experience. Yeah, if ever. And sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's a lesson learned. Yeah, she had started with magenta instead, which is really cool. I'm glad we'll have a variety. I need to be more organized about posting the results because I get them from you guys in random messages, and I need to save them in one folder, in the same folder that I have all of these things in. That way I can actually share them all together. And so feel free. I would love to. Exactly, yeah. Or if you guys, I do like to share, if you guys share them as a post, I share them as my story because that's the fastest way for me to do it. But I really should save them. I should save them. Forever. Exactly, and be like, look, other people were here. I'm not just doing this by myself. Some people are interested in what I'm doing. Well, I need visual proof. Sorry, Sally? Oh, it's okay. One more time. Yes, exactly. When I say things, people make things. That's my... Yeah. It's hard. Yeah, not all those who can teach, and not all those who... Actually, most people who teach can also do. I hope that's the case. But... Oh my gosh. I've heard stories. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, at least he was aware. I guess he didn't see the results that he'd expected, right? It is hard because it's a mixture of skills, but it's also motivation. So much of it is motivation. And it's kind of like, I have so much trouble teaching my own children for homeschooling right now. That's probably the biggest challenge with COVID, is just having the patience to help my kids along. And they don't see, it's so hard to help them be curious about the material and less about approaching it in a way that just seems like boring work, you know? And it's so hard to motivate people to do something, especially if they don't want to do it, you know? Like, it's just, you can't make anyone want to do anything. And that comes from, that's anything from fun stuff like art to, like, you know, even just math or science, or, you know, trying to get my kids to enjoy subjects, or even to try to give them a chance, is really hard. All right. I keep doing all the talking and none of the instructing. I'm putting grass. Oh, that's a really stiff piece of grass. Let's taper that off. I might need a smaller brush at this point. Something that's also fun to add if you're thinking about a more watery swampy area, which if you have a lot of tall roots, like yeah, if you're doing a lot of these like mangrove type roots where they curl around, you could even do some reeds. Ugh. Cattails. Cattails are so much fun to do in silhouette because it's just a line with a hot dog on the end. It's great. And you just like push the brush. Yeah, exactly, a pogo. You just push the brush down after you do your straight line, and then there you have a cattail. Now, apparently, I have a very diverse ecosystem here. We have spikes and cattails and mangrove roots and whatever else. We'll be adding fairies to the mix, you know, whatever. It's all good. They could be fireflies. Who knows? But yeah, because it's silhouetted, you can do anything. It's like, oh, this could be a monkey, or maybe it's a snail. Who knows? Nobody knows. Nobody has to know. Snail monkeys, sure. Yeah, that works too. Do it. So the glowy things I'll say real quick, just so you can add them later, because now we're all just getting lost in the details. This is really the best part. So with the glowy bits, what you want to do is grab grab a color that is lighter first. So here in the foreground, can you see this? Yeah. I have like kind of a stage lighter than my midtone. So like 1, 2, 3 stages. That color, it's like a lighter color, but not, yeah, it's 1 stage lighter than the midtone. And I just do a circle, a big circle. So here, I'll make a new one here for you on my previous painting. So let's say I want to add one here. I do a circle of this medium color. Okay. Just enough, just light enough so that you can see it. Let it dry for a bit and then get pure white. And then we're just gonna do like an egg. Boop, right? Just a dot in the middle. And the only thing to keep in mind with this is that you want to have the ones that are bigger to be closer to the bottom. This is a perspective rule again, okay? So if you do bigger ones, make them smaller along the bottom in your dark areas. And as you go further and further into the background, grab a tinier brush, dip it in some water, and then you can just use the white. And then it'll almost be like specks of snow or stars, right? Because far, far away, you're not gonna see that glow as much. You just do the little dots like that because it's more like the far away stuff and in less detail. So yeah, just keep in mind when you're doing it, larger in the front, near the bottom, and smaller in the back, and the medium shade for the glow around it. And do the glow first. You don't want to do the glow after because then it's just a bit trickier. Okay. No worries. Yeah, and you might also want to let your painting dry a little bit first. I think that will probably be when we take our break, is before we add all the glowy bits. So it's all good. What else do I want to add here? I feel like I need more grassy things on the left-hand side, so I'm just gonna like... This is the type of painting where you can actually just go nuts on it forever. Like there's really no... I have a version of this painting. Good luck. Sorry, detail-oriented people. You're stuck working on this for the next 10 years. Exactly. Endless loop. Exactly. You need enough to at least suggest branches at the very least, right? The foliage, the vines, all that's optional. I love adding like the vines up here that look like moss. And that's just I'm letting my brush be a little more hairy. Like I dipped it in water first and I'm having a lighter touch and it looks more like feathery. They had this in Charleston. Like this is like such a multifaceted ecosystem. This ecosystem would never exist. I'm putting every single thing I've ever known to exist in a forest. We have some Spanish moss growing here. It's like near the bottom. It's just like these tendrils that fall down, and it's fuzzy and like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. The giant oak trees in Charleston have it. It's such an iconic image there. But basically, to paint it is just like one swinging thing that's feathery and light, and then near the bottom I just do little dry dabs of just a bit of color, and it adds a little bit of depth there, which is so fun to paint. Okay, I think I'm just about done with this color because I want to add a bunch more with my darkest color. So to mix the darkest color, use whatever you have left. And this is the point where if you need to go like ultra dark, you can either mix it with a bit of black, or you can mix it with a touch of red, or whatever your opposite color is. So India, I think with magenta, you would just use more like a pure, like a really dark red if you wanted, like, or maybe a touch of like ultramarine or blue, or like if it were oils, I'd be using like a alizarin crimson because it's like a deep blood red with a touch of ultra, and that way it'll be like intensely dark on top of magenta. But oh, nice. What's that? Oh no. Oh man, yeah. That might not be very convenient for a painting stream. All your colors are now different. Oh my. What are you watching on? Okay, yeah. Right? All the things turned on. Aw. Oh no, that's why. Yeah. Yep, I was wondering. I just figured it was some kind of audio issue. It's all good. Woohoo! Congrats, by the way. Woohoo! That's such a good feeling. Oh my gosh. That's... It's just been too long. It's just it's gonna expire. You know. Oh no. I'm sure after so long, right? Wow. Life. That must feel so good. What's the program? Or what's your master's in? So fancy. Technical. So very. Looking at pictures of things from the sky. Pretty pictures from space. Awesome. So, yeah, pretty pictures from space of nature from far away. And is it healthy or not? By the pictures. Simply by looking at photos, you were able to discern the health of an ecosystem? Okay. Was it over a stretch of time? Like, were you able to see different places, or did you kind of have a sample? Okay, I was wondering, yeah, because that would be a nightmare if you had to every year, like, change your data source. Man, the recording is going to sound so crazy. It's a one-sided conversation. Yeah. Yes. Ideally, yes. Yeah. Well, depending on what the environments were doing. Like, if things in the environment changed, then I imagine so would the patterns. Like, oh, there's a town here now. Mm. Ooh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you did a bunch of the work, so now it can happen. Yep. All right, so I'm grabbing a huge brush now, and I mixed pure phthalo, like my blue, with a chunk of yellow, and I did not add any white. And it's actually quite a good deal darker than my previous layer, so I may not have to actually resort to pure black unless I want to add another layer after this. So now I'm filling up all the way to the edge of my canvas with a bigger brush, and this is the darkest color I'm gonna get without adding black to it or red. So it's pure phthalo with a touch of yellow. Because for my midtone at the very beginning of this painting, I actually added a bit of white for my midtone. Oh, I can do my edges now. Not that it'll matter because I'll probably prime this painting too after. So many versions of the same painting. You can only keep so many. Like I have at least, I found in that like I had this one, like the one that I was showing you guys, like this is probably my favorite version. And then I recently found this one, which I did at the art house cafe. It's so messy, but like it's different, you know? They're each, it's so different, and every time it's a bit different, but the same. So, whatever. That's what I get for having taught the same thing a few times. I definitely reuse the canvases though on a regular basis, and am always happy to take your leftover canvases, right? Oh man, so after... Well, have I got a story for you? Or a canvas for you? Right? Can't wait. Okay. Oh my goodness. It could be, yeah. Let me see. All right, it looks like a lot of different things happening there. Like it definitely looks like pick every type of style and do it on one canvas. Yeah, that's fun. It could be a fun assignment. But not something you'd want to hang in your house, probably, unless it's your jam. So, I mean, art is such a personal thing too. Like if people were to just, someone was asking me, like they were trying to sell me art, and I'm just like, okay, they're like, oh, you're a painter, do you want to buy this? And I'm just like, no. Like in the politest way possible, I don't like this painting, but yes, it is skillfully done, but it's not my style, you know, like I don't even really buy art very often, and it's hard to tell people that, you know, like it doesn't mean it's a bad painting, it just means it wouldn't fit in my space and it doesn't jive with whatever I'm into, you know. It's like food, it's a personal choice, and I'm just like, they're like, oh, but it's worth, oh, what was it? I'll sell it to you for this much. It was worth this much. My uncle painted it. And I'm just like, I really don't want it. It was kind of rude. They just really wanted to, because the situation was that they wanted to hire me to do something, and they wanted to do a trade. And I'm just like, no, I don't want this painting. I don't care that you said it's worth $500. You're not getting $500 worth of work out of me for this, you know? Like, you can pay me like a normal person. Anyway, it was an interesting, that's only ever happened once, and now it's a story I can tell. Don't try to get people's services. Don't barter unless they're already in on bartering, you know? Like, if that's the agreement you made, then it's fine. Exactly. Yeah. Just, like, don't assume that they'd want that, you know? And normally when I do trade for stuff, it's not for the same medium. Like I can make paintings, but like normally I'd be into trading for something edible or trading for something like furniture or beer or, you know, like, and it's exactly, I would rather take some alcohol off of you than your uncle's painting that is not really in my style. It wasn't bad. It was just, you know what? It kind of looked like just like a Bob Ross landscape, you know, like just very, it was nicely done, but it's just, I'm not into that. This is about as landscapey as I get. And yeah. Yes, I remember that one. Did you? Oh my gosh, are you serious? You can totally paint those things in. I've seen, it's like a big, but it could be. Mm-hmm. Palatable. Haha. Alrighty, Sally. Thanks so much for hanging. Once you do the glowy bits, please do share it with me. I'd love to see. Okay. Yeah, that works too. It's totally up to you. Yeah. Sounds good. Night night. Alrighty. I think I'm on my last darkest layer. And again, starting with like the U shape of the most basic, and then I'm just going in with details again. And I'm trying to figure out some interesting stuff to put in there that's a bit different than the previous layer. I feel like I took out I pulled all the fancy stops already, so I'm gonna have to just figure out more interesting things to do for this last layer. Maybe some snails will happen. I don't know, we'll see. More spikies. Yeah, more spikies. We'll do more spikies. I'll do some spikies on the left side this time, just to switch it up. All right, big branches. We'll start with big branches. Yeah, the closer, like now that I'm doing the darkest, most foregroundest, that's a word, layer, most foregroundest layer, the branches can be really, really thick and take up more space. So I'm gonna be generous with the trunks here. And they can span all the way across. So black. Have you already used it? You can wipe it off if it hasn't dried yet. My head is totally blocking it at this point, but that's... Okay, where will I put you? Big branch! Giant branch! Yeah! That purplish, yeah, purple, the dioxazine purple, yeah. Yeah, and then you would just, your mid-tone would be like half white. Yeah, that stuff is dark. But it really shines when you mix things with it. It's such a great mixing color. Like when you add pretty much anything to it, it really, it's like there's what is it? Not alizarin crimson, it's the quinacridone magenta is this like super electric magenta that is really nice that I use. When you mix it with white, it tends to just, it's what I use for a lot of my space paintings that have any magenta in them, and it really makes it glow. Some of them just really come alive, and others are just meant to not be. You just have to test it, really. I'm really eager. I got a Wallach's gift card for my birthday, and I haven't used it yet, and it's one of those things where I don't want to buy like class supplies with it. I want to buy something wacky just because I can, because it's a birthday present. So Gamblin has like a funny, like a series of these really bright colors and oils, and it's harder to find crazy colors and oils because they use more traditional, like they use minerals, right? They don't have as many synthetics for oil. But Gamblin does have a collection of more synthetic-y things, or like they're almost pastel neons, and I really want to get some of them, but I don't want to shop for them online because color I need to see in person, right? They have the little swatches. So for something like that, no, I can't, unless I know exactly if I'm just getting a refill of something. But for a brand new color that I want to test for fun, I have to wait until I can go there in person in a few weeks. So I'm super excited for that trip. I'm gonna buy all the colors. Exactly, yeah, and like for paint colors. And they don't even take a picture of it for the website. They just have a digital swatch. Like, this is what it's closest to. I'm like, but then it's totally your monitor. Like, depending on what computer you even look at it on, or on your phone, or it'll be totally different. So it's definitely something I want to see in person, because they do that little painted, usually, I think for most of their paints, they have paint on the actual outside of the tube to show you what the sample is, yeah. For the nicer brands, they do that, yeah. For the acrylics, not so much, because if the container is clear, you can just see it. And like acrylics usually come in like plastic, but tubes are, yeah, so it's see-through. But for oils, it's normally the metallic tube, so you can't see it. So they have that little swatch on the outside that they've kind of pre-smudged on there for you. It also helps you judge to gauge the opacity. Opacity, yeah. Be like, oh, that's crazy transparent. Like some colors are just so see-through. They're just used for tinting. They're not even used for coverage. You have to mix them with something for them to even function. It'll say that though. It'll say like semi-transparent or transparent orange or whatever. And those are ones where it's like if you have a nice solid color, you would just add some of that to tint it a different color. You wouldn't actually be making it lighter or darker. It just kind of takes a different hue, like without the value changing. Color will change, but the lightness won't. Darkness, lightness, whatever. You know what I mean. The light, yeah, light, dark, like. Light fast is something if it will last for a long time being exposed to light. So like if it's light fast, I'm not 100% sure, but like light fastness is mostly to do with longevity of colors. But I would say it would be, so this painting that we're doing is a value study, because it changes the lightness. So there's more white or less white, and the color itself doesn't change, right? We were trying to constantly mix the same shade. So the hue is the different level of actual color, like the in a rainbow, like closer to red, closer to blue, closer to green. That's the hue. And the saturation is the intensity of that color. So light, kind of like the original, like this here, what we had, where this is a very saturated turquoise. This is a desaturated turquoise. So it's less intense. But it's not necessarily lighter or darker. It's just less intense. It's like as if the color was leached out of it. So that's saturation. And then value, value is the amount of white or black in it. The amount of light being shone. Value is strictly measured with the amount of light on a subject. So yeah, there are like so many different ways to talk about color, and the vocabulary sometimes is not always the same, and that's what makes it tricky, because some people say, oh goodness, I had this mostly at the tip of my tongue when I was teaching the portraits class because I was trying to explain it, but some people will say saturation, some like for intensity, some people will say intensity, some, you know, for color, some people will say lighter or darker, and whatever. They're, oh, hi Milo. Yeah. Words, things, art. I digress. I didn't have a point other than, you know, things. People use different words for describing the same thing, especially when it has to do with colors and shades. Yeah, some people say shades, you know, different shades of green that we're using right now. I would say different values because, you know, that's what I learned. Fancy. Because I think of value studies where I was stuck painting the 6 sides of that cube all in different shades of gray, right? Like it's a value study. You're strictly looking at the physical amount of light being dropped on each side of that cube produces different values of gray or black or white or whatever. As opposed to like a study of a cube with a yellow light shining from one side and a blue light shining from the opposite side. That's more of a hue study. I don't even know what these are. Grass, seaweed, kelp. It's my every ecosystem environment. Now we have seaweed. Oh, this will be another spiky thing. That's right, I did want more spikies. The never-ending painting. It's actually 9 o'clock. We did not have a break. But, I know, but we technically started about 15 minutes later, which is pretty normal now. I feel like I should just bundle that into the time. Maybe like I should say it starts at 6:45 and then people will, I have no idea if that'll work. Yeah, build that time in. Yeah, that's actually, it's not a bad idea. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It also depends on the personality type because, sometimes with some family members, I have to tell them, oh yeah, the wedding is at 5 when it's, actually at 6, just in case. Is that Walter? He's so cute. Does he? Yeah, that is so cute. Milo hates closed doors. She'll try to whine and cry her way in as well if she sees a closed door. Why aren't I allowed in? And then if I open it, she kind of looks around and then leaves. Like, okay, I was just checking. Just wanted to make sure. I wanted to see what you were doing, and then leaves again. It's like, oh wait. Yep. Yeah. Oh my gosh. What a troublemaker. Oh no. Right? He gets so excited. He knows that. Are you serious? Wow. Oh my gosh. Like, I just wanted to make sure you were watching before I tipped this cup over, so you knew it was me. Exactly. Milo used to do that if I wasn't paying attention to her enough. Like, she doesn't break things, she'll do the scratching post thing on random furniture. And yeah, that, and she'll scramble, she'll run like back and forth in the room too, like to make sure I know that she's in there. But she's not into breaking things. I can actually leave. Yesterday I was hesitant, but I actually left my entire oil palette on the floor. I closed up the spirits, the mineral spirits I was using, at least because I don't want her even touching those or even sniffing them. Like she's a small little animal. I wouldn't want her just passing out in front of the jar. But I left the oil palette open, and she doesn't step on strange surfaces unless they're soft. So she never touched the palette. I left it there, and she doesn't touch that. She doesn't touch my brushes either. But if it's a soft, like I left some grocery bags on the floor, and of course that's the first thing she went for, is she settled herself onto the canvas bags and just stares. What, you needed these? Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's anytime. I like it from here. It's gorgeous. I think it's really pretty. What don't you like about it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You could do some abstract stuff on the very edges. Like if you frame it in black, and then you can go back to a lighter color again on the very edges. Don't give up on it though. Light does help. I'm gonna go into the glowy bits. Since it's like almost quarter after, and before my palette dries. Basically, like I was telling Sally, I'm just grabbing, oh, all my white is dried. I think I have enough here on the side. Nope, I need more white. I took too long. The moment has passed. Your palette is dry. Oh, thanks. I'm already using my other palette for Howl's Moving Castle, and I don't want to mess it up. Like it's like frozen in time with the wet palette on my other one, so I don't want to upset that one to use it for these classes. But I also want to, like, in case people are just working with plates and it's like their first time painting or something, I want to make sure I'm using at least some of the. I don't want to like give myself a cheat. Like, I have a stay wet palette today, so I don't have to remix any of my colors. I'm like, oh well, they don't have that. All right, so I'm mixing. I just grabbed my darkest dark and I put a bunch of white in it, and I'm kind of remixing a stage higher than our midtone, because basically this is the glow color, and I don't need it to be any lighter than 1, 2, 3. I guess my third stage, because anything lighter than that, I would just use pure white. I wouldn't bother giving it a glow. So here I have like midtone plus 1, if I could put a number to it. Midtone plus white. And I'm just going to put in some circles. So I'm using my round, and it might blend with my previous layer, and that's okay. And each dot, I'm making the larger ones in the foreground, like I was mentioning before. I'm using my pointed round. As far as where, compositionally, it's up to you. Obviously, everyone's is so different, so I can't say, okay, bottom third of whatever thing, put a dot. So use your best judgment. I would say start with fewer, and this is also a great opportunity to cover any spots you don't like. Like if you have a funny intersection where maybe the colors didn't mesh very well, you can be like, oh, let me just put a little dot over here if it works. Then go for it. And if you have any spots that compositionally seem very bare, like Anita, what I would say, like if you have a huge dark area at the end, I would just go nuts with the glowy stuff in the foreground. And you can even do some like trails, like, because in this one, I think I might do it again here, but I have this one here, like it's a main glow, and then I have the white kind of trailing. And you can probably have like a whole network of stuff, but like the nice thing about the glow part is that it really fills everything in. Like if you had any gaps or any areas that just looks kind of lonely, you can just fill them in with these little guys. So sad, it needs some glowy light. So the higher up on the canvas I go, the smaller I'm doing the glow bits. If you want to get really technical, you can make the glow area a little lighter as you go further back. I'm not, but it's an option if you want to be a little more accurate, because technically it would be lighter as it gets closer to the light. Because here my glow color on this color is darker. You probably, oh, that's the wrong way. There. So like here I added a glow bit. It's actually darker than the background. We don't want that. So at this point I actually do have to make that glow a bit lighter. So here I was saying don't bother, but you might need to in some spots if you want to add there we go, a little lighter. I'm only going to do the glow for a few of these at this level, and then I'm just going to go in with my brush, my smallest brush, and do pure white. Okay, I think now that I have sufficiently polka dotted my painting, okay, they're kind of even. I wouldn't make them so, like, it's a lot like painting stars or snow. You don't want to make it so regular that it looks like you just overlaid like a mesh on top of dots, or like a net of Christmas lights or something so regular. So sometimes I do a smaller one right next to it, or even like, you know, a constellation kind of thing where some of them are really close together and sometimes they're super spread out. You know, switch it up a bit. You don't have to make them super regular intervals. Although if you're a really technical person and you're not, like, I find the more methodical someone is, the more predictable their paintings can look. So you have to, on purpose, kind of go out of your way to try to make it look wrong to what you might be inclined to do at first, but it'll end up looking a little more organic. Okay, now I'm taking out my teeny tiniest brush. It's a 5/0. I don't know what that really means measurement wise, but that's what it says. It's like the size of I don't know, a toothpick. Maybe a bit small for these, but I'm grabbing some pure white and then I put it in the middle of my glow. Oh, that's actually too small. Go figure. Putting it in the middle of this glow bit. And actually, because this glow piece, can you see what I'm painting? No. That's really helpful. There it is. Okay. So when you do the middle and you're using pure white, it might actually blend with your glow. So you might need to do more than one layer, which actually might end up looking more like, it'll look neat because it might even, here, let me describe what I'm trying to say. Ugh. Okay, let me pick this one. Yeah, you can see that one. So what might end up happening if your outside glow circle is still kind of wet and you grab your white and you do your circle in the middle, it's gonna blend, which is cool, but then it's not pure white. But then you can actually do another concentric circle in the very center, and then it'll be a 3-tiered glow. Fancy! So I did that, and then now I just do a dot of pure white, and now it's like a target. But it also makes it look even shinier. So options. Maybe for some of them at the very foreground you can do that. So it's like a mid light and then a super, super pale white dot in the very center. Look like little targets that way. It's nice for the bigger ones to look like the little targets because there's a gradient there and it's higher detail. And it's easier just to plop pure white, boop, Oh, you can't see that either. Here I am talking as if you can see what I'm doing. There, so you can kind of tell those ones are 3-tiered. Hopefully you can see that effect. And then the smaller ones near the background, I would just do the single white dot in the middle. This is truly my favorite part. I did not have a break. I am sorry. Time flew for me. I don't know about you guys. It really did today. Yeah. It's hard. Yeah, it's really like for me. On Friday, I tried to take a day to paint, and it took me, without streaming, it was just very strange to just paint. I had a really hard time just getting into it. I kept getting distracted by other things, and streaming really helps me stay focused because it's like, no, I'm here to paint. But then if I'm painting and no one's watching, or if I'm painting on my own, I tend to self-sabotage and like, oh, I can't paint until my office is clean. Oh, I can't paint until I make some tea, and then I go to make tea and it's like the sink is filled with dirty dishes. I'm like, oh, I can't do it. So it's like, it's really hard to get that groove going, to even just to start. And even like once I actually sit down to paint, it's like I'll be twiddling around with some colors and it'll be a little while before I actually find a groove of the actual painting, let alone sit still long enough to do it. So I'm doing little trails on my glow bits. There's like, I pick a direction and I go with it, doing smaller and smaller little dabs in a curve until I just decide where they want to go. Maybe I'll make one really long. I can like have traveled all over the forest. Do, 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 do. And it can have this little trail. Again, it's kind of like the that jellyfish tendril thing, where if you have any compositional holes, you can fill them with some of these embellishments and it kind of balances things out in the end. There we go. I'm going way too trail happy on these. I need a few more little tiny ones. Near the very purest white in the middle, well, it's almost pure white, I do a lot more little dots that are just dots without a glow around it, and then it looks more like it's coming from the light itself, like almost like dust motes in the sun, and just like tiny of the purest white, and you almost can't see it, but it adds just enough glow so that it's more like a light effect near that exit of the forest, like the very entrance. Yeah, those. Have you seen? I'm sure, like you've seen, like the making of, like the extended edition of Bambi. Of course, I have it. They show the they show how they painted for the. They use this technique a lot later on too, but I think Bambi was the first one that they did it in, where they painted all their backgrounds on glass, and then when they did the opening pan, they would shift them. They did these hugely wide landscapes on glass, and they put them all lined up on tracks. And depending on how far, it's funny because you learned a lot about perspective. Like the ones that are close up barely move, but the mid-ground ones would move a little bit, and the far away ones would move a lot. And like, or no, wait, the opposite. Whatever, you know what I mean. It corresponded to how it would look like if you were driving in a car, right? So the ones closest to you would be moving the fastest. So the opposite of what I said. Anyway, they painted these, like, I can just imagine having to paint backgrounds like on glass. Like, I don't know where they did their rough copies or how, and then they painted it like the whole scene as if it were a stage in a play, and the different levels created that intense feeling of depth. And yes, exactly, so cool. And to think that they were doing that like in the 50s with animation, right? It's so crazy. They had, like, Disney was like the first to do so many of those things, like really innovative stuff. All right, I'm going to sign it and call it a day, but you guys can still stick around. Obviously, I encourage it. Let's see. I'm gonna sign my name, even though I'm probably gonna paint over this. For the meantime, that's okay. Thank you so much for joining me for the Firefly forest painting. I hope you guys had fun, and share your pieces with me when you're done. Okay.